Okay. So for this month, whether you are catching this when it's released or you're just in the Awakened Souls membership and you're watching this, wherever you're tuning in, welcome. I'm really excited to go deeper on this topic of being an empath because I feel like you could probably find a million books on being an empath. You can hop over to YouTube, masterclasses. Again, this word empath is used a lot. I think oftentimes we have heard it maybe from a therapy perspective, from a trauma perspective, um, a little bit dabbled in the spiritual realm, but I'm really excited to bring a different perspective because yes, I am deeply spiritual. I also have the Akashic records open. So, in addition to the Guardians of the Records, just helping me prepare the outline and also just being tapped into that energy so that I can bring some unique perspective from our high vibrational light being team that surrounds us. I also am formerly, trained in nervous system regulation, trauma informed. I also have gone through my own healing around this area. So I can bring a perspective of yes, there is a lot of different layers we can view this through. And I hope that you get a different perspective. Um, we can also talk about what are sometimes some of the blind spots, blocks, and healing that empaths may need to pursue going deeper in and ways that you can work with me if you'd like to do that. While absolutely at any point, anyone can book a one on one healing session with me when my books are open or do a package around anything. Is if as you're watching this, something comes up for you and you're like, wow, I want to explore this deeper in the records, do some healing. As well as, if there is some demand, like I'd be happy to even do a group healing mini program on this. Although I will say, because the wounds from being an empath often tie back to childhood, often tie back to some maybe form of abandonment or parentification or different things, I also fully realize that some women will want to pursue the healing on this path in a more one on one level. So, lastly, we will also discuss energetic practices that I highly recommend for an empath and how oftentimes, remember, this is honestly just in general, our ego mind, our mind likes to overcomplicate things. Like, you might think I'm going to deliver like some just crazy new specific energetic practice that you should use if you're an empath or you have empath like qualities or abilities, as I'm going to refer to it here going forward. You'll find that honestly, um, keep it simple. Keep it simple. These practices are not like crazy new age. I'll talk about them at the end, some things that you can do that I recommend doing on a daily or a weekly basis, adding into your own spiritual practice, your rituals. But honestly, the mind will want to overcomplicate. It's going to want like, whatever, like a big long prayer or ritual and do this and then that, and then sprinkle salt and then do this three times clockwise. And to be honest, like the more complicated doesn't make it more powerful. It's honestly simple. And you are a soul, you are a very powerful soul. And just know that through simplicity and some words and some intentions, you carry great, magnificent power to help protect yourself as an empath. All right, let's hop in. First, let's clear up what is an empath. Okay, now I know I already kind of like spilled the tea if you're reading what's on the slide. So first I'm going to say like I think what a lot of people think of as an empath is like, oh, like I'm an empath. I'm really caring. I really care about others. I deeply empathize with other people. I can feel other people's emotions. Either, you can notice that in like personal intimate relationships or an empath will even be like, yeah, no, like I can feel other people's emotions. Like I can't go out into big groups because it's like I can just take on everybody's energy. I can like feel it. I can't do big crowded groups. And I will say, like, I absolutely, again, I can relate to a lot of these. I have noticed my own empathic qualities and abilities in one-on-ones, small group relationships, as well as like, I've also experienced it in a larger environment, in public, in with the community. But I really want to get clear on what it is. And so we're going to dive in. Okay, so I just want to like, what is it? Really? If you are an empath, An empath is really like you're intuitive, right? You are an intuitive channel. You can access information that seems like, gosh, why should I know this? Why do I know this about either yourself or about someone else? Typically, if we're talking about empath, gosh, why do I know this about someone? Like, I shouldn't know this. This seems like a weird knowing. Okay, so technically, that's you tuning into your own intuition, your intuitive channel, tapping into your clairs. And usually specifically an empath, you're tapping into this you're using your clairsentient. Now, yes, you might also even be intuiting into your like claircognizant, or just your knowing, or your clairaudient, like all of a sudden just something like you hear something, and you're like, wow, I think this is about that person, like you feel like, gosh, I must be really empathizing with them because a friend is, you tend to be the person who people come to for advice because you give really good advice because you just seem to know things about this person, about their situation. It's like, huh, how do I know this? How am I getting all this? Right? Like, oh, I'm an empath. I'm taking on their emotions. I know things about them. Okay, but really you're intuitive. You're always intuitive. Okay. And again, you probably didn't many empaths, it's like you didn't take this on thinking like, oh, I'm just an intuitive and I'm doing this on purpose, because we're going to get into like how this developed. um but really you're using your intuitive channel, and then, as I call it now, if you are inside Awakened Souls, you have access to my entire spirituality and intuition course, where I go through various spiritual and intuitive topics. And in one of the first ones, I think it's in Intuition 101, I really just like mince what's the difference between intuition, what a lot of people call intuition, versus psychic. And really, psychic is just you're using your intuitive abilities, you're tapping into your intuition and your clairs for other people. And specifically, if you're like, like kind of like a trained psychic, that just means like you're doing it intentionally. Like you're intentionally tapping into other people. Like you're using your clairs, you know things about other people, and you're doing it intentionally. You're using your psychic gifts. But that's also really intuition. All of that to say, intuition, psychic abilities, that's an empath. That's what an empath is doing. You're just tapping into your clairs. Okay. It's not like, I mean, I hate to say it, but like there's not some other ability you have. It's tapping into your clairsentient. Now, yes, I will also say, because I come from a background in healthcare, mental health, trauma, nervous system regulation, another layer to this that's even outside of like the spiritual and you tapping into your intuition, psychic abilities, you using your clairsentience to read other people. Yes, I do also want you to know that even on a scientific level, if you look up the Heart Math Institute has done a ton of research, and they ultimately developed a Heart Math biofeedback tool that I'm also trained in using, and that I used with clients for 3 years when I was doing stress management and resilience work. Now, the reason I bring that up is because Heart Math found that we can literally sense other people's energy, although that's maybe not the word that Heart Math used, through our heart rate variability. Okay. Heart rate variability, your heart's rhythm and pattern. It's an electromagnetic field that they can scientifically test and research and like see. They can see it with their scientific instruments. And what the Heart Math Institute found is that our heart has the strongest electromagnetic field. So, like, it's real. This all is real. Okay. And because it has the strongest electromagnetic um, power, shall we say, that our heart can kick out based on HRV, based on heart pattern, it's why people can enter a room and just like know, and they feel and sense, and they don't know how, but we can like tap into each other's energy. And so like if someone's in a really good mood, or if someone has really good news, like everybody in the break room like goes in, like everybody attunes to that person. They just are exuding joy. But on the opposite, let's say something sad or something bad happened, or if someone's really angry, everybody at work is like, oh my God, stay away from her. Like, you don't even need to talk to her. You don't even need to like see her. You can walk into a room and sometimes you just know it. We can feel that through the HRV. And it's why using stress management, resilience, and regulation tools is so important, because when someone shifts their heart rate variability, when you shift it out of dysregulation into a more regulated state, it actually impacts people in your 3 foot bubble, because it's so strong and powerful. The heart's electromagnetic field is so strong and powerful that it positively impacts other people. And then vice versa. Like if someone's having a really negative day and they're really dysregulated, thus it can be felt in that electromagnetic field. It's also going to radiate out to other people. Okay, so I digress a little bit, but I just want you to know, like, even in that, that is a little bit of that empath ability or why we can sense people, but it's also like really then tapping into that clairsentience. Okay, so an empath, we can all just say though that an empath, yes, they do care about others, they know things, but it's because you're tapping into your intuitive channel, you're tapping into that clairsentience, and you just know things about other people. You can feel how they're feeling, even without them saying it. Um, okay, now here's the thing. Let me make sure. Okay, I'm just making sure if I like put this on a slide or if I was gonna speak it. Okay, I must be speaking it. Okay. All right, so we have to get curious of why so if you think about it, empathic abilities, you're tapping into your psychic abilities, you're using clairsentience, you're seeing how other people feel. Um, we all have this ability. But if you think of it like a dial, right? Like how, even just your intuition in general, how dialed up is it? How strong is your intuition? How good are you at listening to your intuition? Now, women who've gone through or will go through my intuition mastery course, which really isn't a course, it's a quantum healing container for female visionary entrepreneurs. The purpose of my intuition mastery course program is to dial up the strength of your intuitive channel, but also really like help you clear the cobwebs, clear all the beliefs, the past subconscious programming, healing past life trauma to help like you turn up the volume in essence on your intuition and so that you can hear it. Okay, so that's like one example of a dial. Now, same with this ability to tap into the experience of others, into others' feelings, into others' emotions. It can be really dialed up. It can be maybe just somewhere medium in the middle. Maybe it's somewhere dialed down. Now, I'm going to guess if you are watching this masterclass, you likely have a somewhat dialed up empathic psychic ability. Okay. So, yeah, I just want you to know, like, sure, theoretically, I know people, you and I probably know people in our lives who whatever their personality is and their things are, we might say that their dial of their empathic psychic abilities and their ability to empathize with others is probably like low, right? Like they've learned how to shut it off, shut it down, ignore it, and they're just like moving along in life. And like, sure, yeah, like I'm not saying they're a psychopath and they have no empathy, but some people just like they don't really get it. They're just like, they're not the people who you go to for advice because they're just kind of like, what do you want me to do about this? Like, they don't really whatever. Some people maybe struggle with like, how are you feeling? But if you're watching this, I'm going to guess that you are like, not that I like using the word normal, but you're somewhere in the middle to like over. You're using it a lot. Okay. Now, why would that develop? Why would you have such a dial up? And this is where it can become a problem because I know that I know that I think even like when those of you who asked for this topic in a masterclass form, it's because on some level you may consider your empath abilities, your ability to empathize deeply with others, like a problem because it can be. But that's where you have to think about why is mine tuned up so much? And it is often because you were in an environment that you had to out of survival, typically between the ages of 0 and 10. Not to say that, let's say you had a normal 0 to 10 and then like, I don't know, something happened between 10 and 20. Sure, that could happen. But typically before age 10, you were in an environment where you had to figure out what other people were feeling, thinking. You were tapping into your intuitive slash psychic abilities, or what we would now call your empath abilities, for a reason. And as a child, the main reason a child is operating from is I need to get my needs met. And one of the child's biggest needs outside of like, yes, they typically need to be clothed, fed, have water, and a roof over their head. But one of the most basic survival needs for a child is love and connection. Love and connection with a caregiver, with a parent, with whoever is the grown up in the house, whoever's raising you. It could have been grandma, it could have been mom and dad, could have been your stepdad, like whatever, whoever that was. And so if a child perceives that they are losing connection with a parent, that they are at risk of losing love, that they're at risk of like, being perceived, being ostracized, being kicked out, whatever that means to a child before age 10, they are going to kick up this ability without even knowing it, right? As a kid, we're just going to do it. Now, this could happen in many different environments. Like, so I don't want to imply that just because you have a kicked up empathic ability, I'm not saying like you grew up in like the worst, you have the worst childhood trauma, something really, really bad happens, because that's sometimes what we want to like think like, oh, Maria, my childhood was pretty normal. My parents were pretty good. So no, like this doesn't have to look a certain way for you to have developed this. Um, it could just be for example, a lot of parents, depending on who and what generation and when you're watching this, like, for if you grew up with parents who were really heavily focused on like getting the gold star, earning the good grades, achievement, 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 work, work, work. Um, if you're not working, it's like, are you even doing anything? So these types of kids who they're seeking now external validation because they've been trained and they've been taught by the grown-ups around them that like, oh, I need to like do stuff. I need to achieve things to receive this kind of external praise. And oftentimes those parents maybe they weren't the best at like attuning to your emotional needs, which is very important between the ages of 0 and 7. They maybe weren't very good about like showing you love and just saying like, hey, I love you. And that's likely because of what they were raised in. So oftentimes the emphasis may have been on achievement and success and the things you do, and then you would get like praise. So as a kid, you're gonna like want to know, what do they need from me? What do they need from me? You're gonna start like, right? You're gonna start, mom's mad, but you know what? I usually make her happy if I get a good grade. Okay. So you're already now like, okay, but I need to know. I need to know, is mom mad? Did something bad happen at work today? Oh, she must have had a bad day at work. You know what? I could do XYZ. That's just one example, okay? Um, it's also like if you have parents who maybe were and or are somewhat emotionally immature, and as you began growing up, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, they began to parentify you, meaning they began putting their problems on you, like it's somehow your problem. They just began opening up to you almost like a friend. This could have been mom, dad, grandma, whoever. Now, again, now you're beginning to see as a child, like you're like, oh, okay, I'm the helper. I can help mom and dad, right? Because you don't want to lose connection. You don't want to lose connection. And if mom needs this and mom needs advice or whatever, you're going to start to become hyper aware of what are their needs? What do they need? How are they feeling today? Oh, how can I adjust my behavior? Because ultimately, for a child, they still need to get their need met of love and connection. And for whatever reason, the child may not feel like the parent is just doling that out just because. They may not feel like the parent is being super hyper aware of how the child is feeling, whatever it is. So ultimately the child realizes like, oh, I need to tune into how where they are. Like because I know I can create connection if I can sense how mom's doing today. If I can then adjust my behavior accordingly to help her be in a better mood. Because right, everybody's better when we're all in a good mood. Now, sure, on the other hand, worst case scenario, you also could have grown up in a really volatile environment and you maybe had parents who absolutely were at, now looking back emotionally, physically, or whatever it is, abusive, causing you some harm and trauma. And so you also then did need to know and really tune into your empathic slash psychic abilities because you had to do it to keep you safe, to keep your siblings safe, to keep whatever safe. So you can see why, as a child, there's likely some connection of why you became more empathic. Now, I will say, also, you may be like, Maria, no, I don't even think like I truly had really hyper attuned parents. Like I really did. And then this is where, for example, another reason why you just might generally have more highly empathic or psychic abilities is because, you're in a profession like you're a therapist, you're a healer, you're a coach. Like, again, there's a reason why your own inner self like has adjusted to just be more hyper attuned and have higher empathic like psychic abilities because it serves you, right? Because it helps you get your clients results. Like it helps give you that sixth sense when you're working with people. You're in some type of like profession, perhaps of service. And so thus it has like, right, it has benefited you in some way to have this. So that's what I want to say with this is that it's not all bad. it is helpful. I really wanted to make this connection that yes, it is helpful to sometimes understand the etiology behind why you develop such heightened empathic psychic abilities, because that's going to come kind of towards the end when or in a moment here, I talk about some blocks and some things that you might want to heal. However, with that said, whether you had something negative happen that you need to heal or not, either way, having higher attuned empathic psychic abilities is not a bad thing. So that's the other thing. Empath can get a lot of rap, like, oh, I'm an empath. Yeah, I suck on everybody's energy, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? I'm going to give you some spiritual practices. And if you pair that with doing some of the quantum healing, again, this actually is a huge gift. I love the fact that I can use my psychic abilities to support my family and my friends, as long as I'm doing it in such a way that one, that does not infringe on their sovereignty. Okay. Because that's the other thing now. Now that you're aware that you are an empath or that you have some heightened empathic abilities, we still want to be working within just the laws of good nature and good spiritualness, which means like just because you technically can tap in and know things about someone, it's like, should you? I mean, this this likely is also like my background in healthcare and HIPAA and all that, but it's just like really I don't think this is said enough in spiritual spaces. Like, obviously, this is like a code of ethics if you're in healthcare or mental health therapy. And so I bring this from that. And I think this lens can be reminded more. And I will say too, my mentor, my spiritual mentor who taught me about Akashic records, Amy Robeson, she was also very good about this. But when you are spiritual, intuitive, psychic, whatever, we really should only be doing things on a need to know basis. We should be doing things with people's consent. We should not be, if you have heightened psychic abilities that you can read others, whether it's through your clairsentience or otherwise, we really have no business. I mean, honestly, you have a whole life to live. We don't need to be like asking and finding out all this information about your brother and your spouse and like all these people. Like, if you don't need to know, okay, that is like, that's kind of like you're getting like woo candy, brain candy. You just want to know things just to know. And I don't think that's right. Okay. We should either have people's consent or like, I just want to be super honest here. Like, either consent if I'm doing a reading for someone, right? I'm not going to just pull information just because I'm going to ask their consent, especially if I'm obviously doing an Akashic Soul reading with someone, thereby then tapping into my own psychic abilities. um, but also like, I'm only going to ask what the person asks. Like, okay, so I want you to know that when I'm doing a reading with someone, I'm not over here just like flipping through the pages of your life. That is none of my business. I am literally only retrieving what I need to retrieve for the reading, for what you're asking me. Now, I want to preface that with just being fully open, honest, and transparent, because you will notice this too as you develop your own intuitive psychic abilities, especially if you've gone through HSA. And I'm really excited because there's going to be an HSA 2.0 coming out. But okay, is that I do want you to know, like, I can be just with friends, family, people that I'm close with, people that I know, and not doing like a formal reading. And yes, sometimes I will just pick up on and receive stuff. Like, now this is like the kind of stuff I would pick up on even, 10 years ago before I even really dove into my intuition and psychic abilities, right? I would just sometimes know things about people. So like, I'm not doing that on purpose though. Like, if something just is like kind of coming into my sphere, I might just thread it into conversation because it might be relevant. It might help the person. And if I somehow feel like I've like opened a door and all of a sudden I'm just getting information that I don't need to know about the person, I know enough now that I can just be like, oh, close that door, please. No, thank you. I do not need to know that. I just want to be present to the person in front of me. I'm not doing a reading. I don't need to know that information. Okay. So I just want you to know you're very powerful. You have this ability to like open doors, close doors, get information that you need. Don't, close the door if you don't need information. So all of that. I just want you to know you're very powerful in dialing up, dialing down your own abilities. Okay. So with all of that, here are some blocks or healing that if you're an empath, you might want to consider. Because as I mentioned before, if you think about maybe how you developed this skill, I recommend that you dive into some of these reflection questions. And as you do that, you might uncover a layer of healing that you want to go deeper in. So you might ask yourself, when did I begin to see that I needed to be able to read the room or read people around me? Like, when? Okay. And you're going to want to be regulated when you do this. You're going to want to drop into your heart and just write and see what comes up. Ask yourself, why did I develop this skill? Why did I develop this skill? Why did I need this? Why did I need this when I was growing up? How did this serve me? How did this pattern serve me? And then even ask now, how is this pattern serving me? How does being an empath serve me? And like I said, it's not all bad because it can be a good quality, especially if you are in an active service of others. If you're a coach, a healer, a therapist, just something where you help people, again, having this empath psychic ability and now being aware of it is really helpful. But also, there may be parts of it that are not helpful. Okay. I want you to just start raising awareness to that because while empath abilities can be there, it then can often be tied to, not always, but often tied to people pleasing behaviors. Because here's the thing, the empath ability is you channeling and you tuning into your intuition, your clairsentience to pick up how to read the room. How is that person feeling? Are they angry? Oh, like you can kind of sense the deeper layer of whatever's going on. Maybe something that happened to their workday, whatever. You just know things about them. Okay. But the second layer of that is what do you do with that information? What do you do with that information? Now, as a child, oftentimes you are going to develop people pleasing patterns. You're going to want to please this person because, again, the ultimate underlying goal is you want to maintain love and connection. So, mom had a bad day and you can sense that. Oh, you're going to like, mom, how can I help? Mom, I'll do this for you. Oh, mom, I'll do this for you. You know what, mom, I can even do this for you. And I know as a young kid, sometimes it can be like harmless. It's like, okay, great. You're helping your mom. That's awesome. Okay. But you can see how that can then really become a problem as you grow up. Okay. Is that now that you know what other people want, what are you doing with that information? And has it began to perpetuate some people pleasing? Because where there's going to need to be some deeper healing is when are you abandoning your own needs to get other people's needs met? Because you have a subconscious belief that in order to be loved, in order to maintain connection, I need to first abandon myself, abandon my needs. You basically, how this was described to me, like from my own theta healing mentor, it's like you bloop, you pop up out of your own energetic auric field and you literally like are tuning in with them. So you completely abandon yourself. And that is not a healthy pattern. And that is not like, that's not how your empathic abilities have to work. Meaning you can be an empath. You can be someone who, when needed, you can tune into how, you can receive information for someone else, especially if it's a reading, this, that, or the other thing, and still stay in your energetic power, still stay in your aura. Okay, that is why I personally really like the Akashic Records modality that I use. That's why I technically don't call my readings that I do with my clients psychic readings because I'm not just using my psychic abilities. I have learned a method and a modality where I can open my Akashic Records. I open the other person's Akashic Records, and it really helps maintain everybody's energetic boundaries so that I'm not popping up out of myself, that I'm not abandoning myself to get information for someone else. That is why some psychics who aren't trained, who've just become psychic, it's oftentimes because as children they were empaths and people pleasers, but then now they're psychics, which is great. That's not bad. But they're oftentimes drained at the end of the day because they're doing their psychic stuff, but by abandoning their own energy, by abandoning their own needs. That's not what we want. Okay. So we need to really tune in. Am I sometimes exhibiting people pleasing like behaviors? And this maybe it's only showing up in one relationship, maybe it's showing up, right? It could be showing up different ways in your life. And you got to ask, am I doing this at the harm of myself, at the avoidance, rejection, or abandonment of my own needs, oftentimes emotional needs? So these are going to be some blocks where deeper healing is going to need to occur. So, as I said, asking yourself, am I abandoning myself to please other people? Or maybe there's just one person in your life who you specifically do this with. And if you are abandoning your own needs, as I mentioned, you're going to want to go deeper on that. Okay, so what are some spiritual practices for empaths? And like I said, so I say empaths, I say that along all spectrums of the dial of wherever you are. And I also say this prefacing with like, again, you may also have some deeper healing to do, but let's just say, you have empathic abilities, you're psychic, you can tune into others. Ooh, the text got a little sloppy here, but the big one. Okay, and this is where I mean, you guys, I'm keeping it simple. I'm not going to give you 10 practices. I'm not going to give you the most complicated prayer rituals or the 5-step X, Y, and Z, do this, and then you're going to be good for the day. Meaning, like, keep it simple. The biggest thing, clear and cleanse your energetic auric field every day. If you know that you are someone who can tune into, and take on other people's emotions, stuff, energies, conversations with your coworker, conversations with your spouse, your kid, everybody in the galaxy, every day you need to be doing a clear and cleanse of your energetic auric field. I believe I talk about this a little bit more in spiritual practices. I have an audio. I have some pieces already on this within the Awakened Soul membership, if that's how you're watching this right now. But I will also make sure under this masterclass, wherever you're watching it, to drop. There's different ways you can clear and cleanse your energetic auric field. Again, keep it simple. Pick one. It can be every time you interact with water, every time you take a shower, you set the intention that you're clearing and cleansing your energetic auric field. It could be every time you wash your hands. Every time you wash your hands, you are clearing and cleansing your energetic auric field. Now, I realize that's like multiple times a day, but I'm just saying you can build it into things you're already doing. Or just at the end of the day, you can listen to an audio. I have an audio, a full, beautiful audio of clearing and cleansing your energetic auric field that I might be re-recording soon here. But also if you listen to that audio enough and you just pick up the pieces of it, just know like it, for example, for me, I learned it as part of my theta healing practice when I was getting trained. So I just recite it to myself every night. I don't have to pull up the audio anymore. I just recite the whole thing to myself every night, and I clear and cleanse my energetic auric field. So that's most important. Next, when you go out in public, or you're just with certain people, like you're going to be with someone who you tend to have people pleasing or heightened empathic abilities around. You're going to surround yourself in a bubble of loving protection. Okay. And I will do a video for this, but again, really simple. You're going to visualize your own energetic bubble. And when I say visualize, you're just going to visualize it in your mind's eye. Okay. I'm not saying like with your actual eyes, you're seeing a bubble. I'm saying you're going to close your eyes and just know as you continue to get to know your soul self, you will see in your mind's eye your auric field, your bubble. And so before I leave, before I do anything, one, it's like I clear and cleanse my auric field, right? I'm clearing and cleansing my bubble. I release anything that's low vibration. I release anything negative. I release anything that's not my own. I release it all now and I send it up to the light. Okay. So I clear it. Then I'm going to fill my bubble up. I fill my bubble up with the loving protection of unconditional love from Mother Earth, from Source, right? Fill it with love. I also embed or imbue it with, you'll notice I have these crystals on here. I embed and imbue it with tourmaline, I could say, or obsidian or shungite as an extra form of protection. And then I'm going to do this little blowing practice where I'm going to like look around. I'm going to see if my bubble is sealed, but if it feels like there's maybe some like gaps or tears, I'm just going to like, oh, I see a little tear up there. Seal, little one down here. Seal. I'm just seeing this in my mind's eye. I'm just sensing. And for good measure, I'm going to do one more. Okay, sealed. My bubble is now sealed. There's no rips or tears. Okay. And now I just set the intention. I'm embedded in a bubble of unconditional love, and protection. Anybody that I come into contact today, if they aren't in the highest vibration or highest light, or they, they're sending me anything that's not in the highest light, it's just going to like bounce off my bubble and it's going to repel back to them, but just like in the form of unconditional love. Okay. So I try to do that. And I'll be honest, I don't always do it, but I try to do that, especially if I'm going, to talk at like a bigger speaking engagement, or if I'm going to certain family events with family who's kind of dysfunctional, I'm going to do it for sure. And that just gives me that sense of protection. And then lastly, like tangible, you don't have to, you can even like call in these 3 crystals that I have right. You can even like call them into your mind's eye and witness them coming down to you as a ray of light. Or you can also, I keep selenite rose quartz like in every one of my purses. Like I have small pieces of them. So they're always with me. And almost every one of my purses that I just know that I carry when I leave the house have either shungite, obsidian, or tourmaline, like a darker protection crystal. So that's an extra benefit. And that's it. Like that's it. It doesn't have to be crazy. Again, you could like Google other things. You could go to YouTube. Like if your own intuition lands you upon another practice, beautiful. That's amazing. But also don't let your ego out of fear just like go to Google and be like, oh my God, I need this practice. I need this special, special, special empath practice. Okay. Like you can really keep it simple. So I recommend going above. This honestly got longer than I thought. So thank you if you've been tuning into the whole thing, or maybe you're watching it in snippets. But go back, journal on some of the questions above. Be sure if you sense there are some underlying blocks or patterns that are maybe no longer serving you, that are coming out like people pleasing behaviors, do feel free to follow up with me to ask about doing some deeper healing together. Otherwise, again, as mentioned, I'm always happy to share like some of my other mentors who I've done healing with, or some women that I work with, again, like you may have soul contracts with other healers. And maybe you're realizing from this, maybe you actually want to work with a trauma informed therapist. Maybe you want to work with an IFS therapist, maybe whatever it is. So just know, like you'll know. And even you can ask your guides to send you guidance or signs on like who you can work with on this, and commit to one, at least one of the spiritual practices above. Obviously you can do all three. I hope you enjoyed this. I would love to hear feedback. If you are an Awakened Soul member, I would love to hear, just hop into the general chat. Let me know what you thought of this masterclass, any of your ahas, takeaways, wins. Also, I love it if you want to go to Instagram, tag me at maria.service and share something that you loved about this masterclass. And if you think that it could help someone else, I love like when you also share those there. Or you can also send me an email, but I'd love to hear how this landed for you and what you took away from it. Okay. Oh, yeah, that was old from an old slide. Okay, so have a good evening.